Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They're very, very generous, Steve. Thank you very much. First of all, before I take an assignment to work with an organization, I like to spend 30 minutes in the reception of the organization, picking up everything about the values and the culture. I was lucky enough today to come down early before you kicked off and wander around outside and pick up a view of who you are, what you stand for, and what's it like to work with you. The first thing I noticed, it's informal, it's friendly, there was a buzz, you get on well together, you're prepared to laugh at each other, you love working here, there was a passion that wasn't lost on me, there was a commitment, there was a drive. So, and having worked in retail for many years, I've forgotten what it was like. It was fabulous. Then I sat down in the middle, peering around, trying to get pick up some more stuff about you, and the presentations. Andy, Steve, and David. Outstanding. Natural, authentic. They couldn't help but share their commitment, their passion, their drive. This is a transformation journey. It's tough. It's difficult, but it can be done. And the bit I wanted to pick up was, where do I pitch this? How do I pitch it? I've had my briefing. I've spoken to your leaders. I hear what's going on, but I wanted to feel it. I wanted to touch it. And believe you me, I could. I could feel it. And I listened very carefully to what the guys were saying. They know how challenging this is going to be. But there was a belief. And on these journeys, management alone won't get you there. We're sitting in a time, in a moment, where the recent past was all about certainty. And now as we peer forward, it's all about uncertainty. There was a time when a good enough management team, good enough brand, good enough strategy, good enough culture was good enough. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer good enough. Now it's a moment of leadership. Extraordinary times demands extraordinary leadership. And one of the misconceptions we have here in the developed world, that leaders are at the top of the organization. Nonsense. Nonsense. If I look at the smart winning teams, the high-performing cultures, leaders are everywhere. The cashiers, the till operators, the pump attendants. Leadership is not about rank. Management is. We train to be managers, and our business school, we churn out managers every year. Good managers. We can touch it, we can feel it, we can train it. One size fits all. There's only one way to do it. And that's normally, because it's the tangible, we can measure, and that's how you get up the organization. Leadership is something different. Management IQ, leadership EQ. From what I've felt there, I'm going to accelerate how I'm going to speak with you. You've got it. So I'm going to push you with no apologies. And over the next hour, I'm going to try and convince you of three things. And the first one is, your heritage will not be your destiny. What has got you to where you've got to today will not serve you well going forward. The world has changed. Number two, culture is more powerful than strategy when you're on a transformational journey. Your strategy is sound. Everybody gets that. But everybody can copy your strategy. Nobody can copy your culture. The only sustainable point of difference that makes you unique, special, and different is your culture. I want to talk to you a lot about culture. But finally, on a personal level, I'm going to push you as individuals to manage a little less and lead a little more. If you're going to navigate your journey over the next 3 to 5 years, it's all about leadership. It's all about you. So I'm going to pose you a question we're going to try and answer together. Why should anyone be led by you? What do you bring to the leadership party? And there are so many wrong assumptions around leadership. I want to try and help you explode the mythology around leadership. I get to do about 80 to 100 of these interventions a year around the world. And over the last 3 or 4 years in doing them, if we were 5, 6 years ago, we could get away with an off-the-shelf presentation. You can't do that now. The world has changed. All of our clients, all of the companies are more discerning and more demanding. So I get briefed, like I was briefed by you, in detail about where the organisation is, current situation, and where they want to get to, desired situation. And my job is normally trying to give you a helping hand and a push to get there. But what I've realised as I stand back, 80 to 100 interventions a year, I've got a real contemporaneous view on what separates the winners from the losers. What are the top teams doing? What are the winning businesses doing? What's the magic? What's the alchemy? 99 times out of 100, it's culture. I was asked to chair a conference in Barcelona, leadership conference. And whenever I did my usual thing, get there early, try and pick up what they stand for, what it's going to be about. And because it's Barcelona, one of my favourite cities, I'm standing outside the hotel, I'm trying to get into the zone of Barcelona, my limited Spanish. How am I going to open this? What words am I going to say? And as I'm thinking this all through and I'm in my usual garb, dark suit, white shirt, a brand new Rolls Royce pulls up. Out steps a chauffeur. Grey uniform, grey cap, steps out, opens the back door, and out steps the most gorgeous, middle-aged Iberian woman. Absolutely everything is in the right place. Everything. The chauffeur comes quickly behind her, takes off this really expensive fur coat from around her shoulders, goes around the front, lays it over her arm, jumps back in the car and drives off. As I'm here working out how I'm going to home, she steps up to me in perfect English and says, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where the leadership conference is today?" And I said, "Yes, of course." She's decked out, her hair's fantastic, expensive jewellery, haute couture, and this seriously expensive fur coat over her arm. I said, yes, it's downstairs in the ballroom. She says, "Thank you very much, sir." Proceeds to go down to the ballroom. Just before she does, she leaves the fur coat over my arm and walks downstairs. Yes, I'm totally dumbfounded and speechless. So I'm standing there thinking, what the? The tannoy comes on. "Please, please, please give a warm welcome to your host for today, ReneCarayol." I run down the stairs, jump onto the stage, and it's "Buenos dias, welcome to Barcelona," with the fur coat over my arm. Everyone in the room is looking at the fur coat, so I tell the story of the fur coat. And I say, you would never believe this. The owner of the fur coat is sitting here in the auditorium, and I'm sure she'd like to come up on stage and collect her fur coat. And nobody moves. We have to get the house lights on, and it's the longest walk in the world. When she comes up and I present her back with her fur coat, I share with her, sometimes wrong assumptions are our greatest learning opportunity. I've been back to Barcelona God knows how many times. I've had dinner with her and her husband 4 or 5 times. What's the first thing we talk about? The fur coat. I'll never forget it, she'll never forget it. We've become really good friends, but those wrong assumptions. I came in here with some wrong assumptions about Argos. I came in, I listened to the feedback from your focus groups. I have to say, I wasn't a million miles away from where they were. But sitting in here and feeling it, you have a story to tell. Stories move culture. Leaders move culture. The 2 bits that move culture more than anything else, effective leadership role models and the stories that support them. I sat in here as excited as you are. This is a hell of a journey. The transformation of a trusted brand into a brand that's going through a period of modernity. That'll be different for many, touching different parts of our population here in the UK. I was excited, really excited. So, let's kick off. 5 years ago, 2010, the BBC, for some unknown reason, asked me to present a series called Business 2025. We took 6 chief executives from 6 different sectors and asked them one simple question. What will your business look like in 2025? 6 chief executives, 6 different sectors, trying to predict 15 years out. This is what happened. Hello and welcome to Business 2025. I'm ReneCarayol. In this programme, we'll be exploring the future and what our lives might be like in the year 2025. From space travel to fashion and from communications to medicine, we'll be searching for clues.
If you think how far the mobile phone has come in the last 10 years, we'll see a similar revolution in satellite navigation We've got GPS at the moment. Within 10 years, we'll have a Galileo system, which will complement GPS. So we'll have two systems up there, a European one and a US one.
By 2025, you're going to have a massive amount of data easily available to you anytime, day or night, to a handheld device.
So if you think about the year 2025, it's actually not that far away. The devices that we carry around with us will have the intelligence to know our personal preferences, know our social circle, and it will be an extension of our persona.
Global warming is such a huge issue for our society. I think in the next 25 years we'll see more car brands coming out, bringing stylish, zero-emission vehicles to our city streets.
We have just completed this wonderful building here at Wembley, and I think in 2025 we will have probably done about another 10 or 12 of those buildings. They will be more expensive, more spectacular, they'll be bigger, and more importantly, from an architectural point of view, they'll be more satisfying.
So we filmed that in 2010. They predicted the future. I went back in 2012 to revisit them to see what had actually happened. Every single one of them got it wrong. Miles wrong. Everything they thought they could do within 15 years, they'd completed and more within 2. Every single one of them. It was a shocker. But what it informs us is our world is moving quicker than it's ever moved before. And the bit that I feel very strongly about, circumstances change, values don't. Your strategy is clear, but you know, circumstances will change again, and you've got to be agile, you've got to be focused, you've got to be able to adapt to it. It's what great organizations do, and they do that through culture. And predicting, it's so tough. Who would have thought Tesco? After all those years of dominance, use of the club card, the appliance of science, who would have thought? 4 profit warnings in God knows how long. They cannot predict the future. So the world has changed. Let me just touch a little context very quickly. When the world changes, smart organizations change. 3 big drivers of change globally at the moment. Demographic shifts. We're seeing population movements we've never seen the likes of before. We're growing beyond belief. We're getting younger, we're getting older. Global power structures, both internally and externally. The rise and rise of Putin, the Middle East. The world is changing really quickly. And old-fashioned politicians, political leaders, business leaders who want steady state, standardization, consistency, it's gone. And it's never coming back. And finally, and by far the most, is disruptive innovation. And I listened to your presentations before, listened to Andy, and it was very, very clear. It's not just online, it's not just mobile, it's not just tablet. The whole world has changed. And it's no longer about keeping up, it's about getting ahead. So, let's touch on a few facts. Population, I mean, it's explosive. Explosive. And the implications are clear. This is the first generation in the history of mankind that'll be less well off than the generation before it. The first one. Everything is mobile now. It's beyond online. It's beyond just having a website. It's mobile. We want it where we want it, how we want it, when we want it. And we're getting it. And you can't stand in the face of that. And here's a sobering thought for you. More people have a mobile subscription than have access to safe drinking water. There are more mobile phones than toothbrushes on the world today. We can't run away from it. We want it where we want it. Not where you can provide it, it's where we want it. And if you're not there, we'll go to someone else. The Americans have coined a term for the times we live in today. They call it VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's just where we are. And if you want steady state, it ain't coming back. So this is why leaders are important. Today's strategy is tomorrow's obsolescence. The world changes and moves so quickly. Apple posted a profits warning this year. Google posted a profits warning this year. It's tough out there. But you've got to back yourself and have the right leadership team. 3 things that are affecting everything we do, including retail. We have choice. The discerning customer has choice like we've never had before. There is overcapacity everywhere. I don't know a sector of business that isn't suffering from overcapacity. So it's not about being the best necessarily, and I heard it said before, I think Steve said it, it's unique, special, and different. In this crowded world, how are we going to stand out from the pack? Everything that's innovated is copied the following day. Every piece of innovation, everything that's new, is commoditized. So brands come into play. Brands build loyalty and trust. Brands are important in our increasingly commoditized world. Everything is cheap now. Price alone is not enough of a differentiator. There's always someone a little hungrier and more desperate than you that go a little bit cheaper. Value, yes. Competitive, yes. Cheapest, perhaps not. But the most important thing, and I heard Julian imploring you, you have the choice to be the brand ambassadors or the brand assassins. And it's entirely up to when someone steps into your store, clicks online and tries to collect, that experience determines our loyalty. How are we going to feel? Do you care about us? Do we have your attention? Do you understand us? Do you touch us? Do you care about us? Do you make us feel special? In this really complex world of overcapacity, what's going to make you distinctive? And your people in store are probably the major differentiator. How many of you on Twitter? Not bad at all, not bad at all. And Twitter is just but one small, simple channel in our world that has gone digital. It's not going digital, it's gone digital. If you travel as much as I do, I'm off to Geneva tonight. If you travel as much as I do, you're this ancient road warrior. You get to know what a great hotel experience feels like. I can sense a good hotel from a mile away in the limousine pulling up. December 2012. I'm chairing a session for Zurich Financial Services. Martin Sen, the chief executive, is taking his top 500 people and their spouses and partners to Los Angeles to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Farmers Insurance, their US-based insurance business. And they're going to Los Angeles, they're going to stay at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. I don't know if any of you know or have heard of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. It's where they filmed Pretty Woman. This is Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, and it's the unbelievable experience. I'm pulling up, limousine comes up, and the doorman. For great hotels, the doorman is probably the key appointee. At the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, their weekly management meeting, the doorman attends. Do you know why? He has 200 customer experiences every day. 200 customer interactions every day. No one knows better how the customer's feeling. What are they asking for? How are we performing? Just think about it. The doorman attends the management meeting, has a big say. Fabulous. For me, the most frustrating thing when you're going into a hotel and you're really busy and you've got hardly any time, you've had to come off a long plane trip, is you don't want to spend an hour trying to check in, standing at reception being asked all these impertinent questions. He comes out, greets me, really polite, and he's got a little microphone stuck on his ear. He's searching around my bags and I realise he's looking for a name tag or some form of recognition. He finds my name and I hear him whisper it through to reception. So by the time I get to reception, and I'm looking around, this is a stunning hotel. I mean, really stunning. As I get to reception, she says, "Welcome back to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, Mr. Carayol." I say, "You're looking surprised." I said, well, she went, "You stayed here in June 1988. Wow. So she's ready. I'm gone. That's just, she said, "You're still looking surprised." Well, that was probably before we bought the hotel across the road, the hotel next door, merged them together, done the refurbishment. In fact, you're looking so surprised, I'm going to upgrade you to a penthouse suite. Guess how I'm feeling now? So it's a fabulous experience. I get upstairs, my bag's already in there. I know I've got a dress rehearsal in 1 hour. I'm going to jump in the shower, get changed, get down to dress up. I've got to facilitate this session with the leadership team. Just before I do, I pick up my iPhone and I tweet. Beverly Wilshire Hotel, June 1988. You'll never believe the experience. Upgraded to a penthouse suite. Throw the phone down, jump in the shower, get changed. I'm back, and I'm facilitating this session with the top team. It's all going well, and after about an hour, let's take a 10-minute natural break, guys. And I get to the hotel staff, and they come in and change the coffees and the waters. And they come in their black aprons, Beverly Hills Hotel on there, and one of them comes up to me, takes from my black coffee, and puts down a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. And I say, very nice, thank you, but I just wanted a black coffee. He says, Mr. Carayol, I'm Ben Trodd. I'm the general manager of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. I just wanted to say thank you so much for that fabulous tweet. What? In an hour? Dom Perignon champagne? Analyse my tweet coming back to me? Guess how I'm feeling? More importantly, guess how many times I've told that story? And you heard this here first. If you're going to Los Angeles, go to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, book the Beverly, and try this. Say, Rene recommended it to me. I was doing a talk in Sun City to Spa International a few weeks ago, and someone in the audience actually tweeted, Rene said, I should book in at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and he said someone would come back to me. Bang! Someone came back and said, fantastic, really pleased you want to come to Beverly Hills Hotel. You will get the discount we offer to all of Rene's recommendations. She's gone. How good is your social media? How good are you at connecting? How good are you at touching? I think I've told that story probably to 10,000 people now. And I don't know how many are going there, but every time I get a note from Ben Trodd saying, thank you very much for another happy customer. Thank you for another. Any friend of Rene's is a friend of... It just works. The desk is increasingly a very strange place to view the world from today. We can touch our customers. If we don't, someone else will touch them. You remember about 6 weeks ago, Pfizer tried to acquire AstraZeneca. This was big news in the pharma industry, which I know really well. What was interesting about it, the acquisition was all about tax inversion, moving their head office from America into the UK so they could pay less tax. They didn't examine the two cultures. I've worked with both of them. One of them is desperately command control, and the other one is one of the most empowering cultures you could ever find. This was going to be a car crash. No one took a moment to look at the two different cultures. This was all done on the desk, makes all the sense, tax inversion. This was a disaster waiting to happen. Culture is really tough to change. It's really tough. Once an organization gets in the groove of doing it one way, it's tough to move. I spent 10 years at Marks & Spencer. They had a formula that had worked for 50 years. For 10 years on the trot, they were the most admired retailer in the world. They had a Tesco moment. I remember it clearly. The chief executive at the time, Rick Greenberry, was goaded by the city. He had a feisty relationship with them, and they goaded him to saying, could you deliver £1 billion profit? And he did, but we nearly sunk the ship doing it. We were burning furniture to get that number, and we got the number, and they've never recovered since. And when I worked there for 10 years, it was a culture that didn't do leadership. We did management. We had a formula that worked. You put St. Michael, you put it on the tomatoes, on the lingerie, on the jackets, on the homeware, it just sold. Our job was not to be creative, not to be innovative. It was zero defect, right first time, don't make any mistakes. It was painting by numbers. I didn't realize they were fabulous at management and couldn't lead. There was no leadership at all. When the world changed and the markets moved and we had to change, we couldn't. And they're still struggling with they can't do that. They've even moved head offices because they thought the head office was symbolic of the old culture. The phone rang one day. I'd spent 10 years at M&S. I'd done 9 jobs. I was a merchandiser in menswear when the phone rang, and it's Pepsi. They were looking for a board director. I honestly thought they'd called the wrong person. I went through the assessment centres, development centres, and it was all about fit. Pepsi is the world's ultimate challenger brand. They woke up every day facing the might of Coca-Cola, the most recognized brand on the planet. They couldn't compete with resources. They couldn't do confrontation. They couldn't take on Coca-Cola head on, but they could through culture. I went through the assessment center. People much better than me, more experienced than me, they chose me. It made me stop and wonder. After a while, I realized I'm the son of immigrants. I was hungry as hell. My parents sacrificed their careers to come over to the UK to give me and my brother and sister a chance of a decent education. That makes me feel every single day I get up, I've got to ensure my parents were proud of me. Pepsi saw that. We needed to be faster, take more risks, hungrier, more ambitious, more aspirational. We knew we were going to make mistakes. That was okay. The only mistake was the one we didn't learn from. It was incredibly powerful. And it's the first time I really experienced leadership. On my very first day in a boardroom, the chief executive at the time, I'd never worked for the Americans before. Larry Cates, the chief executive, walks in. This was April 1992 BG, before Google. And before Google's important, Larry walks in, and in those dark days of April 1992, there were 7 of us on the board and we were all male. And he said, "Gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our new board director, ReneCarayol." He had no notes, he had no Google. Let me tell you a little bit about Rene. No notes, no Google. Rene's parents came to the UK in the early 60s. I think, how did he know that? He talked through the infant school, primary school, my high school. He talked through the degree I did, the university I was at. No notes, no Google. Guess how I was feeling? He then talked through my 10 years at M&S, no notes, no Google. He talked through my 9 different roles. No notes, no Google. It could have taken no more than 3 or 4 minutes. Guess how I felt? I was choking when he was talking. I knew I was on Larry's team now forever. If Larry had said, "Now, Rene, jump to that," I would have just gone and dived through that window. This was leadership, not management. This was leadership. Something everybody sitting in this room can do. No one can give it to you. No one can make you a leader. It's your choice. It's not like management. The day you decide you're going to lead, no one can take it from you. And you've got some vibrant, close proximity role models I saw this morning. What they did was not easy. And I hear you've had a recent conference, and it was chopped and touched and changed a bit for this audience, and they did it on the fly. Believe you me. I've spent the last 3-4 months working close with a couple of big banks. They don't have leadership like that. They don't have leaders who connect, who engage, who are vulnerable, who are sharing with you, who are comfortable losing their words with you, who are comfortable waiting for what's going to come on the voting pads and they're going to respond to what's going to happen. That doesn't happen in most organizations. It's all pre-scripted, all prepared. This was real. I was sitting in the middle more excited than most of you. It was really, really touching, really moving. It was an incredible show. My definition of culture, it's the way we get things done around here. And the way Argos gets things done around here is different to any other organization. The raw ingredients are unique. You mix them up together, the strategy can be identical, something different comes out. Moving that culture is not easy. They can't do it, you can do it. It's everyone in this room. And it creates something that's so unique, that's so powerful, so effervescent. And in today's world, it's not just about strategy. People want something to belong to. Your people want to be part of something that's more than just a business. We're making a difference. Our customers come to us because they get something special, something unique, something different. And I want to be part of that. Command control doesn't work anymore. In a tight margin industry, you guys, you've got to do something, create something. Leaders create excitement. Leaders do people, period. Everything else gets in the way. Your role is to do people. Anything else you do is on the edge of the desk. We now live in a world where the people bit has been outsourced and we're doing all the processy procedural stuff that keeps us really busy and forgetting the one reason we turn up to work every day is we do people, period. We energize them. We create the excitement. We make them feel valued. We make them feel connected. We engage with them. We care about them. That's the leadership bit. Another definition for culture is what happens when the chief executive leaves the room. And it's really interesting, because I was saying, well, where's the chief executive? He's not even in the room today. And it's functioning, it's working. These are brilliant signs for the organization. Trust is the word that sits in the middle of every successful organization. And everyone trusted themselves and trusted each other. They were passing the baton over amongst them was just fantastic, believe me. So here are some organizations who haven't changed. They haven't seen the VUCA thing. There was a time when Nokia owned the consumer handset. There was a time when BlackBerry owned the business handset. Their cultures were driven to deliver those. Nokia tries to do business, BlackBerry tries to do consumer, disaster strikes. BlackBerry had built itself connecting into organizations. Nokia connecting into people. They try and swap, and what do we see? A disaster. Royal Bank of Scotland was all about make it happen. I've never worked in an organization that would execute so brilliantly all the time. Then they started executing the wrong things, making the wrong things happen. They couldn't turn off the execution tap. And no matter what it was just implemented. There was no challenge. There was no question. Cultures are very, very powerful. I could go on. Here are organizations who have stalled. And the stall isn't an overnight stall. These guys are stalling really badly. Apple, the huge launch. iPhone 6, the release of the software. $23 billion came off their market cap the day they launched it. Here's an organization who's geared, I believe, we've worked with them a lot, has been geared to Steve Jobs. The transition is very, very difficult. The leaders have changed, the culture hasn't been touched. Here are some organizations who are ahead of the game. Leaders can make such a difference. ING. They've done some stuff in terms, ING Bank is a Dutch bank. That was bailed out during the crisis. The Dutch government bailed them out to the tune of 10 billion euros. Otherwise they would have gone under. They realized that the Dutch society no longer tolerated investment banking. They sold their investment bank, which was the cash cow. Just think about that. The highest profit provider they sold because Dutch society, they knew, wouldn't tolerate investment banking anymore. When the incumbent chief executive decided to stand down, they made a decision I've not seen many organizations make. They decided to skip a generation, not to go to the direct reports of the incumbent chief executive, but go to the level beneath that. Because they knew the world was changing, and it was going mobile. It was going in a way that we've never seen before. And they weren't able to predict it. So they went for someone who they felt would get it. Ralph Hammers, 41 years old. Ralph came on to become chief executive, and he is transforming the organization. And sometimes you get a symbol of change, a symbol of success, and the story gets retold through the organization, the culture moves a bit. Last Christmas, Ralph decided in straitened times the Christmas party for his direct reports was going to take place in the chief executive's office in the building. They dressed the place out in all the Christmas tinsel, everything, quite cheap and cheerful, but decided to make it black tie and frocks. Everybody turns up, and Ralph and his wife is greeting everyone as they're coming in. The group HR director had come out 10 years before. He was gay, comfortable, fully accepted. He turned up for the first time with his husband. And when they turned up, Ralph was greeting everyone, and Ralph, just naturally, without missing a heartbeat, The way he'd kissed the female partners of some of his colleagues, he kissed the HR director's husband on both cheeks. Within 3 minutes, people were texting the story everywhere. Within 20 minutes, it was round the organisation in the most positive way you can imagine. So much more powerful than any diversity programme. So much more powerful than any sort of inclusion course. It just went everywhere. And I'm not sure, I know Ralph really well. I'm not sure Ralph, it was anything, he didn't even think about it, it was just natural. That has moved the culture of ING. The story's been told, retold, told, retold, told, retold. If you want to work for an organisation that has diversity at its heart, inclusion at its heart, well, you can't. That's no plaque in reception for ING. It's real. And I could go on about these organisations where they've recognised that they had to change. And it's not just strategy, it's culture. Two organisations I do a lot of work with, and two of the most successful organisations in the history of business, Apple and Google, they could not be more different. Angela Ahrendts, who was the chief executive, fabulous chief executive of Burberry, and a small note here, she was the highest paid chief executive on the FTSE 100, package of £16 million, accepts the job to become head of Apple retail, Apple stores. Signing on fee, $69 million. Signing on fee. Sounds like a football club, doesn't it? Signing on fee, fantastic. Apple pay all their top executives better than anyone else in the world. Google pay average packages for their top executives. And Google's top executives are regularly poached by the Silicon Valley crew. Twitter, Facebook, even Microsoft, Yahoo, poaching, they're happy with it. Because the executives go away, they remain brand ambassadors and advocates, and they come back and they do deals with Google. They're really comfortable about it. For the rest of their teams, their people, Apple pays bottom quartile. For the rest of their people, Google pays top quartile. We had the opportunity to interview Apple and ask them, why do you pay bottom quartile? Because we can. There's a queue of people queuing up because they can. The culture of Apple I would describe as command control. And Tim Cook is trying to change that, but it is so set. Someone makes a decision from the top, nobody argues. They just implement. Where at Google, they're empowered to think the unthinkable. For their engineering staff, they're told to work 4 days out of 5. On the 5th day, they can think the unthinkable. They say 80% of their corporate innovation comes from that day that they've down tools thinking the unthinkable. The driver of Apple is sales. The driver of Google is innovation. The goal of Apple is perfection. The goal of Google is new lines of business. One wants to rule the world, one wants to change the world. It's not wrong or right. They're both brilliant businesses, very successful. What do you stand for? How would you describe Argos? What makes you stand out from the pack? What is it about you that makes you different to every other retailer? And I'm not talking about the front end of the stores, I'm talking here, the culture. Why should the best of the best want to come and work for you? I think I can probably get half of it from what I've felt today. But there's more. There's more. So here's my deduction. Not many people move between Apple and Google. Apple recruit the best experts, Google recruit the best people. Who do you recruit? Who do you recruit? David Fairhurst, good mate of mine, used to be HR director for Tesco head office. A few years ago, he moved over to McDonald's. In fact, he went over at the worst time possible. He went when Super Size Me was doing the rounds in the cinemas. Share price tanking, sales tanking, and David is now Chief People Officer. The HR directors report into David. David would see his role as steward of the culture. Steward of the culture. The way we get things done around here. He went over to McDonald's when 80% of the restaurants, and it's Europe, he looks after Europe, 80% of the restaurants in the estate were performing 20% down. 20% of the restaurants in the estate were performing 20% up. You know where managers go, don't you? Managers go to the bit that's failing, let's find out what's wrong and try and fix it. Do you know what leaders do? They go to what's right and see what we can learn from it. David went to the 20% of stores that were performing 20% up. The received wisdom was at McDonald's, we employ Generation X, Y, and the Millennials to serve Generation X, Y, and the Millennials, our major customers. They're bright, they're smart, they're gregarious, and it just works. The first thing David found is that is not true. Generation X, Y, and the Millennials actually don't like people. They're not gregarious. That's not where they wanted to be. They wanted to be on their own, left alone with their technology. What he found in the 20% of the restaurants that were working was there was at least one 50-plus-year-old in the front line. And those 50-plus-year-olds had become coach. They looked after the younger members of staff. They were calmer. They knew how it operated. And they showed them, they cared for them, they provided them an air cover. They were coach. In every one of those restaurants where there was a 50-plus-year-old, performance was up 20%. You go to a McDonald's restaurant in Europe today, you will see 50-plus-year-olds in the front line in every single restaurant. Europe went 20% up. The Americans didn't believe what he was saying, so they've stuck to their guns and they're still trading really badly. Leader versus manager. Understanding what's going on, looking for a solution that drives us forward, not just necessarily fixes a problem. There's no point fixing yesterday's problems today. We've got to understand where we're trying to get to tomorrow.
Well, it's interesting how the expectations of employees and of customers evolve over time, and always disappointing when you look at organisations that just haven't continued to evolve their offering. What's now expected from our employees in our research, and this isn't just in the UK but actually across the world, is that employees are looking for what I call the 3 Fs. They're looking first and foremost in us for flexibility, that they can fit their busy modern lives into their work. The second thing that they're looking for is around future. It's around ensuring that you're making them more employable, that you're actually caring about opportunities for them, you're evolving their education. And the third thing that they're looking for in an organisation like us is what I've called family, the sense of community. Now, if you add all those three things together, some of the things that perhaps years ago organisations were finding as a dirty word, which was the word global and big and these sorts of things, are now sexy and in, because they want to see themselves as employees, as part of a global community. They want to be connected. They want to know what's going on in the organisation. They want to feel like family. They want to have a dialogue of collaboration between themselves and their employer.
So let's talk a little bit about leadership. The leadership is the things you do that affect the culture of your organisation more than anything else. It's not what you say, it's what you do. Last year, I went in search of the ultimate corporate culture. I found myself in Rajasthan, India, in Jaipur. We visited an organisation called Jaipur Foot. Jaipur Foot, it's a charity that makes prosthetics, artificial limbs. They've made over 1.7 million artificial limbs in their 10 years around. DK Mehti, the founder and the owner, is some 83, 84 years old. Him and his direct reports take not a penny. And this is an incredible organisation that is inclusion and diversity I've never seen before. Anyone from anywhere can come in to have an artificial limb fitted. Be they Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Jew, Gentile, Christian, they're welcome. Sri Lankan, Pakistani, Bengali, it doesn't matter, everybody's welcome. It's open 24/7. And it was the most incredible experience on culture I've ever seen. India's big problem is those massive, massive roads, 6, 7 lanes, traffic going like there's no tomorrow in all the big cities. And the main customer is young men. The main patient is young men who try and dodge the traffic or hang on those trains on the outside, bang, they get hit. The emergency service infrastructure is clearly not the best. When they come in, the best they can usually do is an on-site amputation and drive off. So these guys make their way over to Jaipur. sometimes hundreds of miles away, and usually with not too much in terms of resources. And they said that normally 24 hours you will have an artificial limb made on site. Low tech, low tech. We followed one of the patients around for 24 hours. I've never seen a connection, such a connection, between the people, the workforce, and the patients. And you can imagine going and getting someone who's trying to measure up, carve your foot, put it in the kiln, get it heated up, get it to perfection, then someone then takes it down a little bit. We went all the way around to all the different places. The following morning, he had 2 legs, 2 artificial legs. This was an emotional connection, an emotional engagement I've never felt before. When he stood up the following day and he fell over, I went to pick him up and they pushed me back and they said, no, you won't be there tomorrow. And it was something incredible where the workers, the employees and the patients had this kinetic relationship energy. They work 3 8-hour shifts that keeps open every 24 hours. They can do as much as they can do. It was incredible. And with their lack of resource and their resolve, their commitment, and I saw it in the most basic of circumstances, I believe any organization that's committed can do this as well. So stories. I was working with Chris Pilling, Chief Executive of First Direct. And a little bit about First Direct. First Direct, wholly owned subsidiary of HSBC. Launched 30 years ago to be the first bank without branches. Everyone thought they were nuts. After 10 years, they were growing explosively. HSBC felt so threatened, they started to make it really difficult for anyone to join First Direct, especially HSBC customers. Instead of wearing a little bit of cannibalization, eating their own lunch, First Direct was nearly mothballed. But they're the most expensive bank in the UK to bank with, but they have the least customer churn. The last 5 years on the trot, they've been which is Consumer Magazine's Financial Services Business of the Year. 10 years ago, they morphed from being the 24/7 telephone bank to the 24/7 online bank. You know what happens when an organization goes online? They hide all the phone numbers. They didn't. Chris realized that there was one thing that made them stand out from the pack: a human voice within 3 rings every time. The thought police at HSBC brought their IVR automated greeting system down and said, in our call centers, we can crunch down costs by using this automated greeting system. Chris resisted it. His people resisted it. They didn't believe that's what their brand stood for. So we concocted that in a big conference that I was facilitating, I was going to interview Chris and enable him to tell this story. On the tragic day of 9/11, a British woman was in the second tower. When the plane hit the second tower, some falling machinery trapped her. She couldn't move. She was losing consciousness, but she had her mobile phone to hand. She had the wherewithal to make one phone call. Who did she call? She was a First Direct customer. They have no business in North America. She dialed First Direct. She got a human voice within 3 rings, which is why she dialed First Direct. When the operator asked, she said, I'm in the second building, I'm trapped under some machinery. Could you please contact my husband? The operator said, one of my colleagues is calling your husband now. Can you also contact my children? Another colleague is contacting your children now. Recognizing that she was losing consciousness, the operator kept her talking for 45 minutes because she had a third colleague who'd contacted the emergency services, and she was rescued. They've never taken the calls away from First Direct. There's no IVR system. They're true to what their customer promise is. What do you stand for? What's your story? What's a story that your people can connect with? And when I tell you that story, is that strategy? Is that training? Is that development? Or is that culture? Culture is more powerful than strategy. From everything I've seen, this organization is very good at management. But that alone won't take you to where you need to go to. Everybody does management now. The tasks, the plans, the KPIs, the balanced scorecard. If we don't do them, we go out of business. But management is quite a negative experience. It's all about the audit, the check. Are you doing the things you said you were going to do? Anyone who's managed on a daily basis is not a fabulous experience. But we have to do it. It's commoditized. Everybody does it. We call it hardware. If you can buy it in, you can train it, everybody does it. It's not a differentiator. But hear me correctly, this is not an argument to get rid of management, not at all. It's essential, otherwise you'll go out of business. But it is an argument to think about leadership. As I said before, management is the IQ, we think it. One size fits everyone. Leadership is something completely different, we feel it, it's the EQ. Everyone in this room will do management the same way. Everyone in this room will do leadership uniquely and different based on your individual strengths and approach, and that's okay. When I say leadership, I mean vision, people, teams, culture. Vision, people, teams, culture. The things that energize. I want to play you a clip here. This is the power of a story. This is one of the greatest recent speeches of all time. This really got him the presidential nomination. He uses one fact to tell a story. One fact. The only fact in this piece you're going to hear is this woman was 106 years old.
This election had many firsts and many stories that will be told for generations, but one that's on my mind tonight is about a woman who cast her ballot in Atlanta. She is a lot like the millions of others who stood in line to make their voice heard in this election, except for one thing. Ann Nixon Cooper is 106 years old. She was born just a generation past slavery, a time when there were no cars on the road or planes in the sky, when someone like her couldn't vote for two reasons: because she was a woman and because of the color of her skin. And tonight, I think about all that she's seen throughout her century in America: the heartache and the hope, the struggle and the progress, the times we were told that we can't, and the people who pressed on with that American creed, yes, we can. At a time when women's voices were silenced and their hopes dismissed, she lived to see them stand up and speak out and reach for the ballot. Yes, we can. When there was despair in the Dust Bowl and depression across the land, she saw a nation conquer fear itself with a new deal, new jobs, a new sense of common purpose. Yes, we can. When the bombs fell on our harbor and tyranny threatened the world, she was there to witness a generation rise to greatness and a democracy was saved. Yes, we can. She was there for the buses in Montgomery, the hoses in Birmingham, a bridge in Selma, and a preacher from Atlanta who told the people that we shall overcome. Yes, we can. A man touched down on the moon. A wall came down in Berlin. A world was connected by our own science and imagination. And this year, in this election, she touched her finger to a screen and cast her vote. Because after 106 years in America, through the best of times and the darkest of hours, she knows how America can change. Yes, we can. America, we have come so far. We have seen so much, but there's so much more to do. So tonight, let us ask ourselves, if our children should live to see the next century, if my daughters should be so lucky to live as long as Ann Nixon Cooper, what change will they see? What progress will we have made? This is our chance to answer that call. This is our moment. This is our time to put our people back to work and open doors of opportunity for our kids, to restore prosperity and promote the cause of peace, to reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can.
If you're not moved by that, you're not human. One fact, to deliver that message, the most powerful way to connect with your people in the smaller groups, sitting on the edge of the table, sharing the dream of we can. Who wants to work for the pessimist? Optimism is a force multiplier. If you believe, your people believe. Definition for you, leadership is not management. It's how you energize your people towards your vision. Your role is energize. No matter I don't care how you're feeling. I don't care if you're having a bad day. You cannot transmit that to your people. The journey you're going to go on, they need to be up every minute of every day. And your job is energize. We heard the vision, we buy the vision. Your job is energize. And here's why we obsess about leadership. Leadership is the art of accomplishing more than the science of management says is possible. Period. When everyone says it can't be done, the leaders stand up and we do it. They get us to do it. Barack Obama wasn't supposed to win that election. He energized the nation. So, not many remember what you said, but everyone will remember how you made them feel. That's the role of the leader. So I heard you talking about online. I can't tell how many companies I work with where their strategy is effectively this. Some level of centralization, some level of matrix, some level of collaboration, reduce the cost base, agility, speed, automation, customer centricity. That's digitization. That's digitization. Everything you ever do as you digitize your organization gives you all of that. Every bank in the UK is trying to do that. Every insurance company on the planet is trying to do that. Every utility organization is trying to do that. But I was excited when I heard what you guys are doing in terms of digital. This is it. It changes the organization forever. But the culture's got to fundamentally change to meet that. It's faster, it's more agile, it's more customer-centric. Jaguar Land Rover. This was a match made in heaven, should have been. They don't collaborate at all. I love your bit about the home-based concessions. Collaboration starts at home. Nothing is best done alone anymore. These guys were brought together, one of the last British automotive operations. They were first bought by BMW. If you sit inside of a Range Rover, it's a luxury car today. It's not that macho hard driving machine. They learned all of that from BMW. Jaguar learned nothing. If you look inside, when they were then owned by Ford, Ford taught them how to do mass production. 425,000 Land Rovers sold last year, only 77,000 Jaguars. Tata own them today. Tata have done something no other owner's done. We believe in you. What resources do you need? We're giving you 3 years. We're empowering you. Range Rover's going through the roof. Jaguar's dormant. Nothing is best done alone anymore. The smartest organizations now believe that collaboration is the new leadership. Good leaders create followers, great leaders create leaders. I asked you this question at the start. I'm going to try and give you 10 tips that you can do back in your place of work. So when I was at Pepsi, Larry's byword, what he used to say to all of us was, make your spike spikier. At first, I didn't know what he's talking about. What he actually meant was, what I've experienced, I've yet to meet the flawless leader. I've worked with some of the best. I've yet to meet an all-rounder. The best leaders I know, they know they're really good at 2 or 3 things and they hone them to near Olympian standard. Then they build a team around them that balances out the things they're not so good at. No one person can do it all on their own anymore. So I ask you the question, what's your spike? What do you do brilliantly? How do you hone that? Instead of spending all your time trying to work on your weaknesses, by the time you get to my age, you've got no chance addressing those weaknesses. So focus on the things you're brilliant at and surround yourself with people who compensate for the things you're not so good at. How many under 25s do you have attending your management meetings? I'm not saying they need to be on the management team, but they have a language, they have a style, they have an ethos, they have a culture that we need to better understand. The doorman at Beverly Wilshire Hotel that sits on all the management meetings. Who sits on your management meeting that keeps you informed about the fast-changing world? Leaders create excitement. You don't just talk strategy, you don't just give tasks to do. Your job is create excitement. The transformation journey you're going to go on, some days can be repetitive, boring, and dull. Your job is to ensure that those people feel as though they're still working in the right place. It's a privilege for them to be part of this journey. That's your job. What would happen if you treated your people like volunteers? 2012 Olympics, 70,000 games makers, paid nothing, transformed the games for us, made London memorable, legendary even. How different would it be if you treated your people as though they were volunteers? Diversity works, and it's not the blunt instruments of race, gender, disability. They're important. What's far more important is diversity of experience. We come from different backgrounds, we've worked in different places, we've grown up in different cultures. When we all come together and we analyse a problem or an opportunity, we'll have different voices and different views. The worst thing in the world is groupthink. We all think alike. My M&S story. The illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read and write, it's those who can't learn, unlearn, relearn. You are being challenged earlier today to unlearn and relearn. What made you great in the past may not hold you well in the future. The toughest thing in the world is the unlearn. Finish beats perfect. We don't have the time to be perfectionists. This is a race. The only mistake is the one you don't learn from. Finish beats perfect. Share the plan, charge the hill. 90% what's said in the management meeting, executive meeting, the board meeting is not secret. The more you share with your people, the more they feel trusted, the more they'll charge the hill with you. Who wants to work in a vacuum where I don't know what's going on? The best leaders in the world are the ones that sit on the edge of the table and say, I know I shouldn't be telling you this, but you have just engaged and connected and built trust. Inspire and challenge your people. We're living in a world now that challenge alone is bullying. If you haven't supported your people, you haven't earned the right to challenge them. The more you support, the more you can challenge. Finally, what's your story? I was beginning to pick it up today from the guys. The 4 most powerful words that any leader can use on a transformation journey. What do you think? What do you think? My favorite Hollywood clip on leadership. My favorite piece. This is Spartacus. He's a Roman slave. He's been harrying the Romans for 20, 30 years. Eventually they capture him and his band of men. They're outside Rome in the valley. The centurion comes out and he's saying, give us Spartacus and we'll let you free. This is what happens.
I bring a message from your master, Marcus Licinius Crassus, commander of Italy. By command of his most merciful excellency, your lives are to be spared. Slaves you were, and slaves you remain. But the terrible penalty of crucifixion has been set aside on the single condition that you identify the body or the living person of the slave called Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
And that just begs the question, how many of your people will be prepared to die for you as the leader? So look, an hour ago I came on stage, I said I was going to try and convince you of 3 things. Your heritage will not be your destiny, the world has changed. Fact. To manage a little less and lead a little more. Management is important, leadership is vital. And culture is so much more powerful than strategy.